Okay, to start Unit 3, we're going to review slope a little bit. And remember, with this video, pause it to take notes, or you can rewind it if things go too fast. So on page 1, you'll have 2 spots to write your notes. In this first box, we're going to make that a slope review. And so with this slope review, again, pause it if it's going too fast. With this slope review, we have 2 ways that we find slope. The first way is like we did last unit, where you have your 2 points and you use your fraction, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. The second way comes from an equation, which we haven't talked about in geometry, but you talked about in Algebra 1. Y equals mx plus b, where the m represents your slope. There are 2 special slopes that we're going to talk about in this unit. The first one is when we have a parallel slope, and the second one is if we have a perpendicular slope. Parallel slopes are 2 lines that actually just have the same slope, so it's the same number. Perpendicular lines have something that's called an opposite reciprocal. Opposite means one is positive, one is negative, and reciprocal means that we are flipping the numbers. So, for example, if one of my slopes is 3 over 4, the opposite reciprocal would be a negative 4 over 3. Another example would be if my first line has a slope of negative 2, the opposite reciprocal would be a positive 1 over 2. Because remember, a whole number is really a fraction that is over 1. We just don't write the number 1 on the bottom. So let's go through these examples. Directions say find the slope of the line between the 2 points, then find the slope of its parallel. So this symbol means parallel, and perpendicular. So the upside down T is perpendicular, if you would like to make that note. Okay, so in my first problem, I have an x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to set up my fraction, y1, negative 2, minus y2, 4, over x1, 6, minus x2, negative 2. Once I've set up my fraction, I can now go to Desmos. Just going to minimize this a little bit so it's easier to see. All right, so fraction bar, negative 2 minus 4, 6 minus negative 2. Again, no decimals, so we'll hit our button. And that gives us a negative 3 over 4 slope. So in problem number 1, our slope is negative 3 over 4. Now, our parallel, remember that double line is parallel. Parallel means the same. So again, our parallel slope is a negative 3 over 4. Perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. So it's not negative, it's now positive, and then we flip our numbers. So 4 over 3. And that's it. Let's look at number 2. Again, we have 2 points. So we have our x1, y1, x2, y2. Set up your fraction. 4 minus negative 6 over 1 minus negative 2. Once you have your fraction, you can go to Desmos. So, fraction bar, 4 minus negative 6, 1 minus negative 2. No decimals. We hit our button. 10 over 3. So my slope for number 2 is 10 over 3. So my parallel slope is the same number, 10 over 3. Now my perpendicular is my opposite reciprocal. Opposite now becomes negative. Reciprocal, flip the numbers, 3 over 10. Okay, let's move on to number 3. We'll do this one together. So again, I have my 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Set up my fraction. y1, negative 2, minus y2, negative 4, bottom 0, minus 8. We go to Desmos. Fraction bar, negative 2 minus negative 4 over 0 minus 8. No decimals. Click your button. Becomes a slope of negative 1 over 4. So the parallel slope is the same number, negative 1 over 4. The perpendicular is your opposite, so it becomes positive 4 over 1. Now again, we don't like the number 1 in the bottom, so it really is just a perpendicular slope of 4. Go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to try number 4 on your own. Okay, so for number 4, you should have gotten a slope of negative 3 over 2, which means a parallel slope of negative 3 over 2, and a perpendicular slope of 2 over 3. I labeled my x1s and my y1s, and then I also labeled my x2 and y2, plugged it into my formula. All right, as we continue, now 5 and 6 don't have points, so we're using that other way, that y equals mx plus b. The key is that you need it as y equals. So for number 5, we already have it as y equals. Perfect. So then we just have to look at our m. M is the number that's in front of the x. So here's my x. The number in front is 1/3. So my slope is 1/3. So a parallel slope is 1/3, which means my perpendicular now has to become a negative 3 over 1. We don't like 1 on the bottom, so it just becomes negative 3. For number 6, you see y is not by itself. We have this number 4. So to get rid of that number 4, we're going to divide everybody by 4. So when we do that, let's go to Desmos. If we do 2 divided by 4, again, we don't like decimals with slope, so it becomes 1/2. So this first part turns into a 1/2 x plus, now 16 over 4. Again, you can use Desmos. 16 divided by 4 gives us 4. So 1/2 x plus 4 now equals y. Perfect. We have y by itself now. Now all we have to do to find the slope is look at the number in front of the x. So in this case, it's 1/2. So the parallel slope is also 1/2. And the opposite reciprocal would be a negative 2 over 1, which we turn into negative 2. Seven and 8 deal with a slope that we didn't talk about in our notes in our review, because you don't have to use this way. You could use your 2 points. So in this case, it is at negative 5, 6, and it is at 1, negative 6. So we could do the -5, 6, and 1, -6, and we could use our fraction. Or we can count our rise over run, if you remember that. I'm going to do rise over run just because we've already done a lot of fraction problems above. So rise over run, we start with the point that's closest to the left. So in this case, it's A. So our rise, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we went down 12. So my rise, since we went down, is a negative. And then run, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you always have to reduce your fraction. So if you go to Desmos, -12, -12 divided by 6 gives you a -2. So this slope is -2. Now my directions tell me to plot point R so that it is parallel, which means the same. So here's Q. To plot point R, I just have to go down 2 for the rise over 1, because remember, whole numbers are always over 1. So there's my point R. If I were to connect them and draw a straight line, it would be a parallel line. They do not intersect. Now 8 is similar, so we have to find our slope, but this time we're going to plot one that's perpendicular. So first we're going to start with our point that's closest to the left, and we're going to rise 1, 2, 3. So we went up 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So rise 3, run 10. Check Desmos, make sure that's as small as it can go. So 3 over 10. Yes, 3 over 10 is my slope. So if I'm looking at perpendicular, I'm doing opposite, -10 over 3. So this now means I have to go down 10 over 3. So here's Q. Let's go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 over 1, 2, 3. So there would be point R. Okay, let's flip the page. Again, pause when you need to, but we're going to flip the page. And now we have to talk about, given two lines, or two graphs, or two sets of slopes, are they parallel, two lines, perpendicular, upside down T, or neither? So looking at number 9, we have both already in y equals, so we don't have to do anything. Now we just have to look at the numbers in front of x. This one is a -1. This one is a -1. So since they are the same, we're dealing with parallel lines. Number 10, we're already in y equals and y equals. So the numbers in front, first one is a 2, the second one is a 1/2. Now, here they are reciprocals, but they're not opposite. Both are positive. So in this case, it's neither. Remember, it has to be an opposite reciprocal to be perpendicular. Okay, 11 and 12. Here, our y is not by itself. So in this first one, we have to divide everybody by 3. So now we have y equals, remember there's really a 1 in front of that x, so it becomes 1 over 3x plus 12 divided by 3 is 4. My second equation, I have to divide everyone by -1. So it cancels the negative. Y equals, this becomes a negative 3x minus 4. Now if I'm looking at my numbers, I have a 1/3 and a -3. So yes, they are opposite. One's positive, one's negative. And if I have 1 over 1/3 and I flip it to a -3 over 1, that really is just -3. So these are perpendicular. Okay, with number 12, again, same thing, y is not by itself here. So we're going to start by dividing everybody by 4. So this becomes 1/2 x plus 4 equals y. And again, we're dividing everybody in this one by 12. It's the number in front. 6 divided by 12 is also 1/2. So again, Desmos, if you're unsure, 6 divided by 12, no decimals. So 1/2 x minus 2 equals y. We have a 1/2 and a 1/2. They are the same, so we have parallel lines. Now if we have a picture, we have to choose, are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? 13 looks like they would be parallel, but let's count our rise over run. So let's find 2 points. I'm going to zoom in on these. Okay, so it looks like I have a point here at -8, 0, and here's another good point at -6, 1. So I went up 1 and over 2. So this top one has a slope of 1/2. Let's check the bottom. Here's a point. Here's another point. So we go up 1 over 2. Also 1/2. Since they are the same, they are parallel. (14). Now looking at the picture, I know they are not parallel because they intersect. So now I just have to figure out, are they perpendicular, opposite reciprocals, or neither? So let's pick our points. Here's one point and here's another. So I would go down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So here I have a slope of -1 over 4. Now let's check the second one. Here's a good point, and here's a good point. So here I went up 1, 2 over 1. Oh, I'm sorry, I wrote that on the wrong line. We went up 1, 2, and then over 1. 2 over 1 turns into 2. -1 over 4 and 2 are not opposite reciprocals. They're opposite, negative and positive, but if you flip the fraction, it does not give us 2. Okay, 15. Now it looks like if they were to continue to go, they would eventually cross. So we know they are not parallel. Let's find out if they are perpendicular or opposite reciprocals. So let's find 2 good points. So here's one point, here's another. We go down 1, 2. So down 2, over 2. So down 2 is -2 over 2. That turns in to a slope of -1. Let's check our second one. Here's one, and looks like here's one. So we're going down 1, 2, 3, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is a -3/4 slope. Not opposite reciprocals, so it is another neither. Now 16, again they intersect, so they're not parallel. Now let's see if they're perpendicular or neither. So here's one point, and it looks like here's another good point. So we went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So down 6, over 1, 2. Down 6 is a -6 over 2, simplifies to -3. Right, now let's check the second one. So here's one point, and here's another. So we went up 1, over 1, 2, 3. So that gives us a +1/3. They are opposite, negative, positive, and they are reciprocals. So that is perpendicular. Remember that you can go back with this video and rewatch anything that went too fast or you were unsure of. But now you should be working in your packet on the homework practice page to make sure you understand the concepts. The answer key should be on Schoology soon. Message me on Schoology if you have questions, or come see me during Flex.